A very good afternoon to you from the forest here in Bavaria. My name is Borodzicz. I'm a Professor of Risk and Crisis Management, and this is the 20th in my series of Corona Walks videos. These are videos that I shoot when I'm out walking in the woods, and I've been making these videos now for the last year. Today's video is about what I've been thinking about for the last 3 or 4 days, and I can't seem to get this idea out of my head. Bad science, fake truth and corona. Where are we today, and how did we get to where we are today? How did we get to a situation where we have hundreds of thousands of people who are dead in Europe, extreme numbers of dead in other parts of the world as well, but I'm fundamentally concerned today with Europe? And how did we get to a state where governments are able to justify some of the very questionable activities that have been going on? And what first got me thinking about this subject for today's video was coming across the word agnotology. It's a term that was invented by a professor at Harvard in I think 1995, and agnotology comes from 2 Greek words, agnosis and ology. Agnosis is the art of not knowing, if you like, being ignorant. And ology is the science, study or understanding of, as we understand in many other ologies. And the basic method of agnotology, or bad science as one might want to call it, is about creating enough uncertainty that people don't actually believe the truth anymore. Creating so much uncertainty that people might think that 120,000 dead people in the UK is somehow some kind of success story. Yes, 120,000 people dying. That's the highest number of people dying since the Second World War in terms of excess deaths. This practice of agnotology, or bad science as I prefer to call it, has a long history. If we go back some 50-60 years, it was used quite extensively by the tobacco industry, who for decades managed to persuade people that there wasn't a 100% link between smoking tobacco and lung cancer, something which today is an unquestionable link. And they were able to find scientists who were prepared to argue that the science suggests that there is no link, that it's not certain. They were even able to question the idea that tobacco is addictive. You will always find examples of somebody who is able to have a cigarette and then not have a cigarette and so on. So the early examples were very effective, and for decades they were able to block our understanding that cigarette smoking and other types of tobacco smoking were very harmful to you. And the basic methodology that they use is to create uncertainty and to use scientific data in order to produce this uncertainty. But they were certainly not the first to do this. We saw this also historically in colonial times. If you look at very old maps from colonial days, you will see areas that are described as terra incognito, i.e. land that we don't recognize. Now, there might have been a number of reasons for that. It might be that it was just simply unexplored territory, but more likely it was territory that was occupied by somebody we didn't like one of our neighbours, who maybe also had colonial ambitions. And we see it also as a basic methodology in a number of other industries. The nuclear industry, for years, suffering because of protests and arguments about whether nuclear power stations were safe, whether they were acceptable forms of risk in terms of generating power, funded millions of pounds worth of research into research such as the amount of radiation that comes out of granite subsoils, even suggesting that living in Cornwall or in the west of Scotland on a granite subsoil was somehow more dangerous than living near a nuclear power station. Tell that to the people from Chernobyl and Fukushima, which we were told were very, very safe. We see it also in the pharmaceutical industry, where huge pressure is put on groups of scientists to come up with evidence that is supposedly independent that suggests that their drugs are either safe or effective, when in effect usually the entire department that's conducting this research is often funded by that very same pharmaceutical industry, and they well know that if they don't produce the results that the industry wants, there may not be a laboratory there after a few years. In fact, they could just withdraw the money and many of the professors wouldn't have a salary. And we see it in the chemi industry as well, with pesticides. And are pesticides safe, and how much can we have? And currently there's a very big debate about the effect of pesticides on bee populations, and it's quite clear that something catastrophic is happening with the bee populations. I don't want to get too sidetracked into the environment, but I think maybe that's worthy of a later video and a later walk. But I'm also interested in a new and much more dangerous version of this bad science. And this is where fake truth is now being generated. One American president that we're all familiar with used to call it fake news. He coined the phrase, but fake truth is actually probably nearer to the truth. And this is where the internet is used in order to influence how people behave. Now, at a somewhat less harmful but still a very effective tool, we have internet influencers, the kinds of people who review gadgets, who review shampoos, who review new kinds of food, appliances, and tell you what they honestly think. Oh, this is a good vacuum cleaner, or this is an amazing piece of kit, but it uses a lot of energy, or it's not as effective as I hoped it was going to be. But then we have other kinds of internet influence. The sorts of things we saw 5-6 years ago with a company called Cambridge Analytica, where they go on the internet and they research people and people's profiles on the internet and find out about you. What kind of person are you? What's your political views? How are you likely to vote? And then, according to what they think you think, they will send you appropriate messages in order to make you behave in the way that they want. And they can guarantee to their clients they can swing elections by 5, 6, 7%, even 10%. So if they think you're going to vote for what they want, you get the appropriate adverts to encourage you to go out on polling day and vote. And if they think you're not going to vote for what they want, you get the kinds of adverts that say, you don't need to worry, you're going to win, it's going to be a landslide, your vote's not really that necessary, to make you think, well, maybe I can just ignore it and stay at home. And they can get enough influence using this method in order to swing elections. We know they did this for Brexit, we know they did this for Trump, we know they did this for the last election. Now the question is, how long are we prepared to put up with this? Are we prepared to have the democratic system being used in order to prop up what is becoming a totalitarian state? Are we prepared to have governments that last forever with fantastic majorities, such as you see over in Russia? Or are we going to get wise to this and do something about it? I'm very concerned, because if you look at what's happened with Corona in the last year, we see that this kind of internet influencing is still going on. We are seeing constantly being barraged with messages telling us everything's going well, the government are doing a great job. The fiasco over PPE and equipment is absolutely atrocious. The nationalistic wars about the vaccine. Instead of thinking this is an international problem which we all need to get round a table and sort it out together, no, we're going to put a border up and we're going to manage this on our own. I'm glad I got that off my chest. I needed to say all this, and this is probably the most beautiful place you could possibly do it. I'm enjoying where I am standing now. I think probably about 20 degrees. It's lovely and warm. The trees are beautiful. The moss is very, very green, and I'm going to go out and have a little walk now and enjoy the rest of my trip. Now I've said all this, but I look forward to seeing you again and hearing from you. Please send me comments, whether you see this on YouTube or on LinkedIn or on Facebook or on Twitter or wherever it is that you mingle with my videos on the internet. And thank you very much for listening to me again. Goodbye.